Welcome to the Unraveling Achiever, the podcast for the person who's done everything right and is now questioning what that even means. I'm Angela McKay, former SVP of HR turned intuitive career coach and soul reading practitioner. I help accomplished folks like you to stop defaulting to what looks good and start building what feels true. Because you don't have to turn your life upside down. You just need to point your achiever energy toward a soul led career and life you'll love. Every episode, I tune into the energy of what's showing up for my clients and community and share what needs to be heard. No bypassing the mess, just honest guidance for the unraveling that changes everything. Let's get into it. Today's episode is about being disconnected from your feminine energy. And if you're a high achiever, especially in a demanding career, there's a good chance this is you. What has happened is that you've lost touch with intuition, receptivity, and flow. Everything has taken on the tone of producing, pushing, pulling, directing, and doing. You're in constant action mode, making things happen through will and determination. You're focused on controlling outcomes and managing risk. You're strategizing, executing, and driving forward. And you're good at it. You're successful at it. But there's a harsh edge to how you're moving through life, and you can feel it. Underneath all that force, there's a part of you that's wanting to soften, that wants to stop pushing so hard and instead experience life differently, to ease the feeling of strategy and control and instead experience increased intuition, flow, and trust. There's an intuitive lens that's wanting to be seen through, a gentler way of being that wants to emerge, and a softness that's been buried under all the doing. What's happened is you've become so reliant on your masculine energy, the doing, achieving, forcing, controlling, planning, that your feminine energy has gone quiet. Or maybe it's not quiet, maybe it's screaming, but you've been moving too fast to hear it and don't know what to do about it anyway. Feminine energy isn't about being less ambitious or less capable. It's about intuition, receptivity, flow, being instead of constantly doing, allowing instead of forcing, trusting instead of controlling, softness instead of that harsh edge that you've been carrying. So I tuned into this energy when you're disconnected from your feminine energy and everything feels like hustle and force. And I received 3 messages. Here's what came through. The first message is about what happens when you finally let go of your need to control everything and open yourself up to flow. Right now, you're trying to control every outcome or manage every risk. You're planning for every contingency. You need to know exactly how things will turn out before you're willing to take a step. And I get it. You've been rewarded your whole life for being careful in the way of being strategic, for making sure that things go according to plan. But it's exhausting, isn't it? Trying to control everything to ensure life goes the way you think it should, not being able to relax because you're always 3 steps ahead, managing and directing at work and at home. This message is an invitation to something different, to let go, soften your grip, and to be open to where life wants to take you instead of forcing it to go where you think it should. And I know that might feel terrifying because what if you let go and everything falls apart? What if you stop controlling and things don't turn out the way that you need them to? Just know that perhaps you've been so busy controlling that you don't even know what's possible when you're not forcing. You've been pushing for so long that you don't remember what it feels like to flow, to move through your day without forcing, to allow things to unfold in their own timing, to trust that opportunities will come to you instead of chasing them down. And when you finally experience that flow, even for a moment, it feels like relief, like you can finally breathe. It's like you've been swimming upstream your whole life and you just realized that you can turn around and let the current carry you. Letting go of control will open you up to start to see through a different lens. Right now, you're seeing the world through data, strategy, logic, risk management. Everything is calculated, analyzed, planned, but there's an entirely different lens available to you, an intuitive one. And when you see it through that lens, the world looks different. You notice things you've been missing. You sense things before you can explain them. You know things without having to prove them first. And that lens isn't less valid than the logical one. It's not less intelligent. It's just been dormant because you've been taught to not trust it. This might look like following a feeling, even when you can't explain why. It might look like saying yes to something that excites you, even though you can't see the full path yet, or trusting that things will work out without needing to know exactly how, or being open to possibilities you never would have planned for. When you make this shift, when you start to trust instead of control, when you start to flow instead of force, you're not being irresponsible. You're not being reckless. You're finally allowing your feminine energy to guide you. And this energy knows things that your masculine energy can't access. This energy sees connections, senses timing, and trusts the unfolding. The second message is about the softness that's wanting to emerge, the gentleness that's been buried under all the producing, achieving, and doing. Right now, you're nearly all doing, all producing, working, giving. It's all output. You're pouring into your work, into other people. You're managing your home, your career, responsibilities. You're in constant output mode. And there's very little being, very little rest, receiving, allowing yourself to just exist without producing anything. And that constant doing, that relentless producing, it's created a harsh edge. You can feel it in your body. You can hear it in your voice. You can sense it in how you move through the world. There's a hardness, a brittleness, a sharpness that doesn't feel like who you actually are. And underneath that harsh edge, again, there's a part of you that's wanting to soften. Not to become weak or passive, but to soften, to be gentle with yourself, to move through the world with more ease, and to hold yourself and others with more tenderness. When you allow yourself to soften, when you finally stop forcing and just be, something in you exhales. Your shoulders drop, your jaw unclenches, your nervous system finally gets the message that it's safe to rest. And in that softness, you remember things you've forgotten, what it feels like to be present, what it feels like to receive without immediately needing to give something back, what it feels like to enjoy something just because it feels good, not because it's productive. And when you soften, your creativity can emerge. Not just artistic creativity, but the ability to see new possibilities, to connect ideas in unexpected ways, to imagine what could be instead of only seeing what is. When you're operating entirely from masculine energy, forcing, producing, controlling, your creativity shuts down. Everything becomes formulaic, transactional, mechanical. But feminine energy is where your creativity lives. And when you give yourself space to be instead of constantly do, when you allow yourself to receive instead of only give, you soften that harsh edge. Your creativity comes flooding back. And more than that, you start to experience life differently. You're not just moving through your day checking boxes. You're present, you're noticing beauty, you're feeling pleasure, you're connected to something deeper than achievement. You're experiencing the world through that intuitive lens, sensing, feeling, trusting. And it's not that you stop achieving. It's that the achieving comes from a different place, not from force, from flow. This requires you to believe that being is as valuable as doing, that receiving is as important as giving, and that softness is not weakness. It requires you to create space, real space, to just be, to rest without guilt, to do something purely because it brings you joy, not because it's productive. It requires you to spend time in nature to ground yourself in the natural rhythms of life instead of the constant push of productivity. It requires you to reconnect with your body, to listen to what it needs instead of overriding it. It requires you to allow yourself to receive compliments, help, support, pleasure, beauty, without immediately feeling like you have to earn it or give something back. The invitation for you is to soften, even if just a little, just enough to feel the relief of not forcing for a moment. Let yourself be, let yourself receive, let yourself create without needing to be perfect or productive. And notice what opens up when you do. The third message is about what's happening when you try to soften, when you try to rest, to access your feminine energy, and your masculine energy swoops in and takes over. What's happening is your drive is so strong, your masculine energy is so dominant, that even when you try to soften, even when you try to be receptive and to flow, the masculine energy swoops in and takes over. You sit down to rest and immediately your mind is strategizing the next thing. You try to be present and you're already 3 steps ahead planning. You attempt to soften and your assertiveness pushes through before you even realize it's happening. And this creates a harshness in how you show up that doesn't feel like you. You're being more forceful than you want to be, more aggressive, more intense. You're bulldozing when you meant to collaborate. You're directing when you meant to explore. You're pushing when you meant to invite. People feel that. You feel that. And it's not who you want to be. It's not how you want to feel. But your masculine energy is running the show so completely that it's drowning out everything else. Importantly, you need to accept that you have a choice. You don't have to let your drive dominate every single moment or interaction. You can choose to bring in the softness, receptivity, intuition. You can be ambitious and grounded, driven and present, assertive and soft, strong and gentle. Those aren't opposites, they're complements, and you need both. This looks like noticing when you're being harsh and consciously choosing to soften. It looks like catching yourself mid-bulldoze and pausing, taking a breath, asking, what would it look like to be gentle here? What would it feel like to listen instead of direct, to invite instead of push, to trust instead of force? It looks like recognizing that your way isn't the only way, that allowing others to contribute their way, even if it's different from yours, isn't losing control. It's collaboration, it's flow. It looks like trusting that you can still be effective, maybe even more effective, when you're not forcing everything, when you're allowing your intuition to guide you, when you're being receptive to what wants to emerge instead of only directing what should happen. Please note that this is not about abandoning your drive, your ambition, your capability. This is about integration, bringing both energies together, allowing the masculine and the feminine to work in harmony instead of having one completely dominate. And when you do that, when you consciously choose to soften while staying strong, when you allow intuition to guide your strategy, when you flow while still achieving, you become more of who you actually are. Not the harsh, relentless version who's exhausted from forcing, but the whole version, the one who's strong and soft, driven and grounded, ambitious and present. So this week, practice noticing. When is your drive taking over? When are you being more forceful than you want to be? When is that harsh edge showing up? And in those moments, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, How do I want to show up right now? What would it feel like to bring some softness here, some receptivity or trust? And then choose that consciously. You don't have to keep operating from that harsh edge. You can soften and you'll still be powerful, maybe even more so. So, those are the three messages about being disconnected from your feminine energy. To recap, first, let go of control and trust the unfolding. You're exhausted from controlling everything, but when you finally let go, when you allow yourself to flow, you remember what it feels like to breathe, and you gain access to an intuitive lens that sees the world differently, senses things, knows things, trusts things that your logical mind can't access. Second, soften. There's a hard edge you've been carrying from all the producing and forcing, and underneath it, there's a part of you that's wanting to be gentle. When you allow yourself to soften, to be instead of do, to receive instead of only give, your creativity comes back. You start experiencing life differently through presence, intuition, and flow rather than strategy and productivity. Third, your drive is drowning out your softness. Even when you try to rest, your masculine energy swoops in and takes over. You are showing up with a harshness that isn't who you are, but you have a choice. You can integrate both. You can be strong and soft, driven and gentle, and you don't have to let one energy dominate. Being disconnected from your feminine energy isn't a failure. It's what happens when you're operating in a world that predominantly values masculine energy, the doing, achieving, forcing, and producing. But you're paying a price. You're exhausted. You've got that harsh edge. You're missing the beauty, flow, intuition, and softness. The invitation here isn't to abandon your ambition. It's to experience life differently, to see through that intuitive lens, to soften that harsh edge, and trust the unfolding instead of controlling it. To finally allow your feminine energy, the flow, receptivity, the creativity, the gentleness, to guide you alongside your drive. You don't have to choose between being successful and being soft. You can have both, but it requires honoring your whole self. And it starts with recognizing what's been missing and allowing it to emerge. If what you heard today resonated, I'd love to support you in going deeper. Soul Reading is a 75-minute one-on-one session where I open your Akashic records, which are like the library of you, and help you reconnect with what your soul already knows about your path, your purpose, and what's next. You can learn more and book at angelamckayllc.com/soul-reading. And if this episode landed for you, subscribe or follow so you don't miss what's coming next. New episodes drop on Wednesdays. Thanks for being here, and until next time, take care.